Be a little calmer across Scotland after some wet and windy weather tonight. Still clearing from the Northern Isles in the morning, but here comes Storm Amy spreading rain. At this stage, fairly light rain across Northern Ireland, extending into parts of western Scotland during the morning. Still some of the overnight rain across the southeast, so it could be a wet start, especially in Kent, but that should be clearing away. And then we'll have a lull, a brief period where things are a bit drier before the next zone of rain comes in. Getting heavier through the morning across Northern Ireland. Rain warnings are in place for the northwest for Friday afternoon and into the evening. That rain spreading across most areas by the end of Friday afternoon. Temperatures in the teens, but feeling cooler than that with the wet and windy weather. Let's deal with the winds then, because they're really going to pick up as we go through Friday evening. You can see the swirl there. That's the storm system. Amber warning in place from 5 o'clock on Friday across the northwest of Scotland, where gusts of wind may exceed 90 miles an hour. A yellow covering much of northern Britain for gusts of wind through Friday night and into Saturday of 60 to maybe 70 miles an hour. Some disruption is likely from this storm system. All the weather warnings are on the Met Office website.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
Practice Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Christopher Hope, GB News' political editor, and welcome to State of the Nation. I'm standing in for Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. On the show tonight.
Earlier today, on Yom Kippur, the holiest day for the Jewish community, a vile individual committed a terrorist attack.
Today we had the devastating news that 2 members of the Jewish community in Manchester have been killed after an attack at a synagogue on the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. The local community is devastated. I'll be joined by one of its members in just a moment. Earlier this afternoon, the Prime Minister chaired an emergency meeting of Cobra in Downing Street after leaving a political summit early in Denmark in response to the attack. He then told the nation in a televised address that anti-Semitism is a hatred that's rising once again and Britain must defeat it once again. The government's anti-Semitism advisor, Lord Mann, will be joining me live from the scene shortly. And
we know counter-terrorism policing has declared this as a terrorist incident.
Greater Manchester Police say 3 other people are in a serious condition following what they've confirmed to be a terror attack. Counter-terrorism police say they believe they know the identity of the attacker and that 2 further arrests have been made in connection with the incident. But could it have been prevented? Also,
thanks to the immediate bravery of security staff and the worshippers inside, as well as the fast response of the police, the attacker was prevented from gaining access.
The police in Manchester have been lauded for their swift response to the attack, stopping the perpetrator just 7 minutes after being alerted, probably preventing many more deaths. State of the Nation on a difficult day for Britain starts right now. I'm also joined by my panel, of course, senior reporter at the Guido Fawkes website, Ellie Wheatley, and the historian and broadcaster, Dr. Tessa Dunlop. But first, it's time for the news with Katie Bowen.
Christopher, thank you and good evening. Continuing coverage of the terror attack in Manchester throughout the evening. But in other news today, Metropolitan Police Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley says he will not resign following a BBC Panorama investigation which reveals Met officers making racist and misogynistic comments. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has described the footage as shocking, adding that the Commissioner needs to be very robust in his response. The footage appeared to show some officers at a central London police station calling for immigrants to be shot and brag about using violence against suspects. Sir Mark Rowley said people in London can trust the vast majority of the force's officers, adding that he was horrified by the documentary. Elsewhere, Sir Keir Starmer says there will be no golden ticket to settling in the UK under plans to require refugees to earn their right to stay long term. The government plans to end automatic family union rights for those granted asylum in the UK and change the requirements for long-term settlement. New applications to the existing refugee family reunion route have been suspended since September, while the plan, backed by up to £3 million, will include encouraging people to stay in the region and take up jobs there. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood will set out the reforms in full later in the autumn that will see refugees face a longer route to resettlement. Home Office Minister Mike Tapp spoke to GB News.
Well, look, we've inherited a real mess from the Conservatives. Firstly, open borders. We saw 400 cross in 2018, over 150,000 since, an immigration system that absolutely ground to a halt when it came to processing, and an unfair system. So it wasn't a level playing field. So what we're seeing here from the Prime Minister today is making it clear to those who are in Europe looking to claim asylum that we're not a soft touch. And that you can't shop around. So we're levelling that playing field to make it fairer for the people of Britain, but of course offering that help to people that need it.
Baroness Michelle Mone has said that she will not step down from the House of Lords as she accused Chancellor Rachel Reeves of using dangerous and inflammatory language about her. It comes as Baroness Mone was ordered to repay millions of pounds for breaching a COVID-19 PPE contract. The Chancellor is reported to have joked that the government had a vendetta against the Conservative peer during a fringe event at Labour's party conference this week. In a letter to the Prime Minister, Baroness Mone accused the Chancellor of endangering her and her family with the comments. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now let's return to the latest from Manchester today with Christopher Hope.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Right, 2 people have been killed following a terrorist incident at a synagogue in Manchester on the Jewish holy day of Yom Kippur. Greater Manchester Police confirm that 3 others remain in a serious condition after the assault outside the Heaton Park Hebrew Congregation Synagogue in Crumpsall earlier this morning, and the suspected attacker was shot dead by police. The Chief Constable, Sir Stephen Watson, said the suspect was shot by officers within 7 minutes of the first emergency call, and counter-terrorism officers believe they know the attacker's identity. Police also confirmed that 2 additional arrests have been made in connection with the case. A bomb disposal team was also deployed after social media footage appeared to show bystanders warning armed police that the suspect appeared to be wearing a vest resembling an explosive device. This afternoon, the PM convened an emergency COBRA meeting at Downing Street, cutting short a summit in Denmark with European leaders to return here to the UK. He then warned of rising anti-Semitism in the UK and expressed his solidarity with the Jewish community. As a reminder of what happened, we're going to play the moment that the suspect was shot dead by armed police at the scene, but I should warn you, the footage is disturbing and the viewer's discretion is advised.
They've killed him. Hell, they're just
everybody else, get back! If you're not involved, move back! Get away! Somebody stay with casualties! Everybody else, he has a bomb! Go away!
He's got a bomb on him! He's got a bomb! Mate, he's got a man, he's got a bomb on his jacket, mate! He's trying to go in and now! He's got bombs on him!
Now, the suspect's name has not appeared in initial searches of police and security service counter-terrorism records, and he's not thought to be under current investigation. Further checks are being carried out to see if any of his details appear anywhere in records of other investigations. Let's go now to the scene with GBNews reporter Anna Riley.
Yes, Chris, we're here at the scene where a cordon remains in place. Police are continuing their investigations into this evening, and a lot of people have turned out, the world's media, in fact, to cover this horrific attack that happened this morning. I'm joined now by Mark Levy. He's the Chief Executive of the Jewish Representative Council of Greater Manchester. Mark, thanks for joining us. How are you feeling about this horrific attack?
Unfortunately, this morning our worst fears came true. The Jewish community has been warning for some time about the awful rise in anti-Semitism across society, and when you have marches taking place calling for Zionists to be hunted in the streets and globalising the Intifada, this was always our fear, that it was going to manifest itself in Jewish people being targeted on the streets of Greater Manchester, going about their daily business. And tragically, it has happened at my synagogue on the holiest day of the year, where worshippers simply wishing to go and pray have been murdered in cold blood.
How are the community feeling, and do people feel reassured about the comments made by the Prime Minister, by the Home Secretary, by Andy Burnham himself about protection for the Jewish community?
Absolutely. We are very blessed in this country to have a government who are extremely supportive, and I've been with the Home Secretary and Andy Burnham this evening, who have been at the scene to offer reassurance to the Jewish community, and that means an awful lot at this time. But make no mistake about it, the Jewish community have been feeling anxious for some time now, to the extent that we have been questioning whether we have a future here in the United Kingdom, and if the country will be as welcoming to our children as it has been to ourselves, our parents and grandparents. We have contributed an awful lot to Great Britain. I'm proud to be British, I'm proud to be Jewish. Those identities sit alongside one another extremely comfortably, and the fact that we're having to have this conversation following a deadly terrorist attack on the streets which I've grown up walking up and down is devastating, and it's impossible to actually articulate exactly how we are feeling at this moment in time.
And how safe do people feel here after what has happened, despite these reassurances?
Well, it's impossible to say at the minute. Obviously, today's Yom Kippur. The community have only just come back online after Yom Kippur, and is going to be an extreme amount of anxiety, which is only natural because we're a small community. There's only 30,000 Jewish people in Greater Manchester, and we will all know those who have been murdered and those who have been attacked, and we send our love and our solidarity to their families, who are obviously going to be dealing with a tremendous amount of grief. So we do appreciate the reassurance and the solidarity from senior members of government, and it is important at this time, but it's impossible to actually speak how the Jewish community is going to move forward at this moment.
And you said as well you don't know if there's a place now for the Jewish community in Britain. What do you mean by that?
Well, we have had to endure record levels of hate crime targeting Jewish people right across society. So we've had issues in the NHS, in schools, on university campuses, in workplaces, and even in our cultural venues. So in a few weeks, the Manchester Academy is due to host a band called Bob Vylan, who have obviously been responsible for what has been described as an anti-Semitic broadcast on the BBC. And as an organisation, we wrote to the Manchester Academy, and we've not even had the courtesy of a response. So that shows how seriously they are taking our concerns. So wider society now needs to listen to the Jewish community as we unequivocally state that we are scared because we've been targeted in cold blood here on the streets of Greater Manchester simply because we are Jewish.
And there are people turning out in support of the Jewish community, you know, regardless of their faith today, out marching on the streets of London in solidarity. But how do you feel at the same time as what's happened today that there's Palestinian marches going on?
Well, it shows a complete lack of sensitivity. This conflict in the Middle East is extremely complex and nuanced, and we've been warning for a long time now that it has a possibility, and it has been imported onto our streets in the UK. And the fact that people waving Palestinian flags feel it's appropriate to be marching and having a rally at this time when the Jewish community is in deep grief, and I believe I've not seen it personally, but I've been told that there's been some awful chanting there as well. It's going to cut very deep at this moment in time. We need to find a way to bring our communities together. The Jewish community have always been open to dialogue. We are firm believers in respectful dialogue and disagreeing with one another respectfully. But unfortunately, a lot of the time, that has not been reciprocated by others.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Mark, today. And our hearts go out to the community. So that's the views of Mark here today. Really appreciate his time just reflecting on the sad feeling across the Jewish community, across the world, not just in Britain, about what's gone on today.
Thank you, Anna. Now, coming in a moment, earlier this afternoon, the PM chaired an emergency COBRA meeting in Downing Street after leaving a political summit in Denmark in response to the attack. And he warned of rising anti-Semitism in the UK. The government's anti-Semitism advisor since 2019 is Lord Mann. He joins me next, live from Crumpsall.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I've got dressed up as a pilot sitting in an actual real-life Spitfire. This is not just a simulator, this is a real-life Spitfire that's been kitted out to do simulations here at the Spitfire Centre in Blackpool. John Puttock joins us now. You're the engineering lead here. And this is quite a fancy bit of kit and really, I guess, you know, lets people experience what those pilots would have done 85 years ago.
Absolutely. This aeroplane, you know, is part of the hangar display here at Blackpool, and Andy Harper, our specialist, actually put this aeroplane together and has enabled it to act and behave exactly like a real aircraft would. And you know, it's available to the public to come up and have a go and see if they can fly a Spitfire.
And tell us about the significance of this aircraft 85 years ago, the Battle of Britain. Things start to turn in Britain's favour.
Absolutely. This is a Mark V Spitfire. Early days they were using the Mark II, and that aircraft had 8 Browning machine guns, firing 303 bullets. This Mark V actually incorporated some 20mm Hispano cannons, and so gave the aircraft a lot more punch and enabled it to be more successful.
And I've got all of this gear on. A lot of it is kind of fur and real thermal stuff. That's because the temperature up there at the height, at the altitude that they were flying, was absolutely freezing.
Absolutely. I mean, the higher you go, then obviously the colder it gets. But if you're at around about 25,000 feet, you're going to be experiencing temperatures of between minus 25 and 30. There is no heating in the aircraft, so from that point of view, the only way you're going to stay warm is to dress for it. So, as the Queen once said, there's no such thing as the wrong weather, it's just the wrong clothing.
The People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, earlier this afternoon, the Prime Minister chaired an emergency meeting of Cobra in Downing Street, cutting short his trip to a European political summit in Denmark. Sir Keir Starmer described the attack as appalling and confirmed additional police will be deployed to synagogues across the country. Earlier, we heard from the PM, and he warned of this.
Earlier today, on Yom Kippur, the holiest day for the Jewish community, a vile individual committed a terrorist attack that attacked Jews because they are Jews, and attacked Britain because of our values. And while this is not a new hate, this is something Jews have always lived with, we must be clear. It is a hatred that is rising once again, and Britain must defeat it once again.
Sir Keir Starmer earlier. I'm joined in the studio by Tessa Dunlop, the historian broadcaster, and Ellie Wheatley, the senior reporter at the Guido Fawkes political website. Tessa Dunlop, it's been a big day for the police today, hasn't it? Because it started so difficultly with the horrific stories of how women and minorities are treated or talked about in a police station, and then very swiftly moved to, frankly, stopping further killings in Manchester.
If you consume your news in the conventional way, sort of a chunk at breakfast and a chunk at lunchtime, it was night versus day. It was the most extraordinary trajectory to go on. I left for work thinking, you know, policing's in a dark place in Britain. And then you come out at lunchtime and your thoughts are, first and foremost, with the Jewish community, because this is the most appalling terror attack on a synagogue, unprecedented, on the highest of holy days, Yom Kippur, and the police out of their skin performing in Manchester, delivering within 7 minutes, and really an emotional feeling of gratitude towards what they have delivered, and a reminder of what they are at their best, and also why we need them to be the best.
To be there 7 minutes after being called. But of course, the policing is judgment too, Ellie Wheatley. A few hundred metres from where we're sitting, there's a protest by Palestinians and also one in Greater Manchester. Why are the police allowing this to happen on a day like this?
Well, that is a very good question. Of course, these protests were probably organised well before this horrific and appalling incident. And, I mean, our thoughts and prayers also go out to the Jewish community and the victims' families. But with this pro-Palestine protest, you would have thought that they would call it off out of respect for the Jewish community. But again, thoughts and prayers and protests are just not enough. We need this government to create a robust and workable plan to root out this anti-Semitic poison that's in public life.
Ellie Wheatley, let me put that question right now to Lord Mann, who's the government's advisor on anti-Semitism. Lord Mann, thank you for joining us tonight on State of the Nation. And in the weather too, I can see it's raining heavily where you are in Crumpsall. You've been the anti-Semitism advisor since 2019. That's 6 years. Why is it getting worse on your watch?
Well, actually, before that, I was chair of the all-party group for about 15 years, and we brought in this system of putting security into Jewish buildings, which is why there's some security in all of them. So Anti-Semitism has been there for a long time. It's been through that whole period. The question is, how are we best going to deal with it? And what I've been doing is giving advice to government on how best to do it. And the problem is increasing. And the problem's increasing across the world. It's not a British problem. It's a problem in every country across the world. And we need to get a lot better and a lot wiser on how we deal with it.
And how should we deal with it? Is it enough to say more security at synagogues, but shouldn't we go back to the heart of it? Perhaps take on those who are conflating the Jewish community here with Israel foreign policy?
No, one thing's not exclusive with the other. Should be doing both and more than that. So this is the first time in many decades, very many decades, that someone's been killed, two people, simply for being Jewish, living their lives as British citizens, going about their everyday life like everybody else, going to a synagogue, walking to a synagogue on the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, and simply because they are Jewish, being murdered. Now, that's not happened for about 50 years in this country, and the impact of it is well beyond the Jewish community. I mean, it's a moment in time for this country, and what we need to be doing is looking at, questioning and coming up with more effective strategies for the hatred that's been allowed to build up in this country, where people feel that they can do this kind of thing. Now, you cited some absurd demonstrations going on, you know, at the same day that this happens. Well, this afternoon, at a synagogue in the south of England, those Jewish people going about their normal business, going to their synagogue, were abused by a passing van. Well, what's going on in the country when on the afternoon that people have been murdered simply because they're Jewish? You've got other people abusing Jewish people, again just going about their normal lives. And this requires a lot of action from government, but it's well beyond government. It requires, well, people need to be challenging in their own families. They need to be challenging their friends, their neighbours, in their workplaces. When people hear hatred being spewed out, for example, hatred against Jewish people, people need to stand up and be counted to challenge it. And of course, politicians should be at the forefront of doing that and working together to do so. Security is important. Money will not be an objective. If there's any weaknesses in security that money can address, they'll be sorted. But this is much more than putting security in synagogues. That is important, and I don't underestimate the importance. And there'll be a thorough review to see if there's any weaknesses that can be addressed. But if someone's going to kill somebody by running a car at them down a street they're walking, it's going to take more than security money in synagogues to solve it. And the long-term stuff we've started, for the first time ever in this country, we have a programme that's started, it's in the schools and the universities, on countering anti-Semitism. It's rather absurd it's taken us 70, 80 years since the Holocaust to do that, but that has begun. But I don't expect results from that for 10 years.
Yeah.
That's not going to be overnight. We need faster than that, and part of the extra change that's needed, and you will fully understand this, Christopher, is we need to get a lot better on dealing with extremism, on defining extremism, on spotting the extremists, not just challenging them but rooting them out. That's a key part. Getting in while they're being indoctrinated and re-educating them, but those who are not re-educatable, taking them out of society so they don't do damage to other people. This is a wake-up call, not just for government, not just for Parliament and politicians, but for the whole country. It's a moment in time. I say, for the first time in about 50 years, Jewish people murdered in our country simply because they are Jewish. It's not acceptable, it's not on. We have to wake up.
Well, Lord Mann, of course, the government's anti-Semitism advisor, thank you for joining us from Crumpsall tonight. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Coming up in a moment, Greater Manchester Police say...
We know counter-terrorism policing has declared this as a terrorist incident.
Greater Manchester Police say 3 other people are in a serious condition following the confirmed terror attack. Counter-terror police say they believe they know the identity of the attacker and that 2 further arrests have been made in connection to the incident. But could the attack have been prevented?
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
If you'd like to avoid Storm Amy and you're looking elsewhere across Europe, well, it's also unsettled in Greece and Turkey. Some very wet weather, as well as strong winds blowing through here. Those outbreaks of heavy rain will move through during the weekend, but certainly Friday's a soggy day. Italy, having seen that wet weather earlier in the week, turning drier, albeit still breezy. Plenty of fine weather through Iberia now, sunny spells, and for much of the Mediterranean, it is turning drier through the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Evening, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Pretty wet and windy tonight across the northwest, and tomorrow night could be a notch higher thanks to Storm Amy. That storm is brewing out in the Atlantic, still a way away, but intensifying as we go through the night. Ahead of it, tonight, this low is already causing some problems in western Scotland, Northern Ireland, some heavy rain here. This band of rain will then swing its way across England and Wales. So pretty much all of us will see some rain through the night, may get woken up by that, and the gusty winds moving in with it as well. With the wet and windy weather, it will be a warmer night compared to recent nights across the south. And then a bit of a respite into tomorrow, but Storm Amy isn't too far away, already starting to push in across Northern Ireland for tomorrow morning. The things, though, will, at least for a time, be a little calmer across Scotland after some wet and windy weather tonight. Still clearing from the Northern Isles in the morning, but here comes Storm Amy spreading rain. At this stage, fairly light rain across Northern Ireland, extending into parts of western Scotland during the morning. Still some of the overnight rain across the southeast, so it could be a wet start, especially in Kent, but that should be clearing away. And then we'll have a lull, a brief period where things are a bit drier before the next zone of rain comes in. Getting heavier through the morning across Northern Ireland. Rain warnings are in place for the northwest for Friday afternoon and into the evening. That rain spreading across most areas by the end of Friday afternoon. Temperatures in the teens, but feeling cooler than that with the wet and windy weather. Let's deal with the winds then, because they're really going to pick up as we go through Friday evening. You can see the swirl there. That's the storm system. Amber warning in place from 5 o'clock on Friday across the northwest of Scotland, where gusts of wind may exceed 90 miles an hour. A yellow warning covering much of northern Britain for gusts of wind through Friday night and into Saturday of 60 to maybe 70 miles an hour. Some disruption is likely from this storm system. All the weather warnings are on the Met Office website.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Now, 2 members of Manchester's Jewish community have been killed in what police have confirmed to be a terrorist attack at a synagogue. The attacker, armed with a knife and driving a car, was shot dead and appeared to be wearing a vest resembling an explosive device. Let's listen to Assistant Commissioner Lawrence Taylor speaking earlier today.
This morning, an appalling attack took place in Grumpsall in Manchester. 2 people have died. The attacker has been shot dead by the police. We believe we know their identity, but for safety reasons at the scene, we're unable to confirm at this stage. 3 other members of the public are in a serious condition. We have also made 2 further arrests. And based on what we know, counter-terrorism policing has declared this as a terrorist incident.
Now, authorities have been praised for a fast response, but could the act of terrorism have been prevented altogether? I'm joined now by the Senior Director of the Counter-Extremism Project, Hans-Jakob Schindler. Mr. Schindler, thank you for joining us. We are seeing rising anti-Semitism on the continent. What can we learn about why it's increasing, how to tackle it here in the UK?
Thank you so much for having me. Look, I mean, very clearly, since the pogrom-like terror attack of Hamas against Israel and Israeli civilians, we have seen a steady stream of anti-Semitic incidents, both on the continent as well as in the UK. What I think is underestimated is that this amount of anti-Semitism is not explainable through individual acts. There are organizational networks. There are new coalitions between Islamists, the extreme left, but also part of the extreme right, that make this a very toxic, very dangerous, and very complex milieu of extremists. And as tragically we've learned today, this can lead to very, very serious violence.
It seemed to get worse, didn't it, after the 7/7 attacks?
Sorry, I lost your sound.
Can you hear me now, sir?
Sorry, now I can hear you.
Apologies. I was just saying that it seemed to get worse, didn't it, after the 7th of October attacks nearly 2 years ago? But it was tracking upwards before then, wasn't it? What's driving it? Is it all to blame on Israel and Israel's foreign policy, or is it other reasons too?
No, I mean, anti-Semitism, sadly, is one of the oldest conspiracy theories and one that really unites all extremism phenomena, whether it's the extreme left, Islamist, conspiratorial extremism, or right-wing extremism. They all unite in their deeply seated anti-Semitic roots. Now, the situation in the Middle East and the ongoing war in Gaza simply provides an excuse to live out their anti-Semitism. But what has happened in the last 2 years is that the rather one-sided criticism of Israel and the Hamas being able to really instill part of their narratives that they are the victim rather than the perpetrator of this situation really gave a lot of people a far more higher comfort level with being openly anti-Semitic again. That's something that really has to be tackled.
So you must allow, of course, I suppose, demonstrations in support of Gaza and Palestine, but is the policing being done right here? Should there be tougher on the chanting, more arrests being made to ensure that it stays the right side of not being anti-Semitic? You can campaign against Israel's foreign policy, but you must never be anti-Semitic.
Exactly. So really the easiest cutoff point of what is anti-Semitic and what is not anti-Semitic is a simple question. Are you living a double standard towards Israel? Are you expecting from the Israeli government behavior that you do not expect from any other democratic government in a similar situation? If you compare the criticism levied against Israel with the criticism levied against the international forces in Afghanistan or even in Iraq, it's really not comparable. So there is an anti-Semitic element towards this.
And just briefly, what should our government be doing here to combat it? We're obviously increasing policing around synagogues. Anything else? Monitoring online sites, more intelligence gathering and so on?
Yes. So look, there are, as always, one has to learn out of these incidents. That's the only positive aspect of these incidents, that you can learn how to make it better next time. Obviously, first of all, there is a question, was the car able to get so close to the synagogue on Yom Kippur in a situation like this, where it was clear that the very sizable Manchester Jewish community would turn up in larger numbers because it's the highest Jewish holiday of the year to the synagogue than under usual circumstances. So, would there be a need for physical barriers? We have coming up next week to the anniversary of the 7th of October, where the exact same question needs to be asked. Then, of course, you need to look at the online sphere. We have, unfortunately, or fortunately, at the moment, very little details on the online behavior of the perpetrator, but I guarantee you there is a strong online element. What needs to be done there, and what responsibilities do the platforms need to take when they see that people radicalize online towards violence. And finally, you have to really concentrate on the organizational element of this large, extended anti-Semitic wave that we see on the continent, in UK, but also in North America.
Listen, Hans Jakob Schindler, the Senior Director at the Counter-Extremism Project, thank you for joining us tonight on State of the Nation. Thank you. Let's go to my panel in the studio here, the senior reporter from the Guinea Fawkes political website, Ellie Wheatley, and the historian and broadcaster, Tessa Dunlop. To you first, Ellie Wheatley. The next few days will be, what on earth do we do about this? Is it a cultural issue? There's a security piece to it. John Mann told us earlier about that. What should the government be doing?
Well, the government should absolutely be working on a robust approach to root out anti-Semitism. That's the number one thing they need to do. Also, they'll be looking into publishing a full report into who this person was, who supported him in this horrific incident. But also, they should be very transparent with the details of all of this. We saw, obviously, last time with the Southport stabbings, holding that information from the public just fueled civil unrest. So we don't want that to happen at all.
So be clear who it is early on.
Yeah, they've got to be clear. And to be fair to Greater Manchester Police, they were really clear about what happened, when and where and what, etc. So that was good from them.
Tessa Dunlop, is it a question of education? You're a historian. It was alluded to by the Prime Minister earlier when he said it's on the rise again. You know, it was something that Jews have always lived with. It's not new. It's a hatred rising again. He's obviously alluding, I think, to the Second World War, the Holocaust and so on.
And, of course, Keir Starmer has extended Jewish family. I was interested by an expression he used. He talked about this vile individual, but, of course, we know that vile individuals don't operate in vacuums. And actually, it is about a cultural, a political environment. I was very moved listening today to the Bishop of Manchester, who has had experience, of course, of horrific terror attacks previously in his city, 2017 specifically. And he spoke very affectingly, I thought, of how today rhetoric has run ahead of humanity. And actually it's incumbent on all of us to remember that while we can wave flags and be demonstrative and have spiky conversations about freedom of speech, actually that might land disastrously in the wrong ears, in front of vulnerable people who aren't equipped to do the right thing with it. And I'm talking from the top down. Think of Trump in the way at that Charlie Kirk's funeral, that extraordinary wife saying she forgave the man who killed her husband. That was the most powerful thing that happened at that funeral. And then the most powerful man in the world counters it with hate. And I think from the President of America right down to platforms like GBNews, to us as individuals in our sitting rooms, thinking about the way we execute our thoughts on, for example, foreign policy 2,500 miles away, with the behaviour in our houses, in our streets.
But Ellie Wheatley, can that happen? Will we dial it down? Would you say every time this happens and then we forget, don't we, the shock?
Well, exactly. And also speaking about rhetoric, I mean, we were listening at Labour conference. Starmer's speech was very passionate about the
fight against reform.
The fight against reform and also the far right. But interestingly, as Nick Timothy, the Tory MP, pointed out, that there was no mention of anti-Semitism. Starmer saying the hatred's on the rise again. Well, we know it's been on the rise specifically after October the 7th. Anti-Semitic hate crimes have doubled since then.
Well, just on that very point then, is there a blind spot? Although this happened, it started rising under the Tory government, so it's not really Tory or Labour ignoring it, is it, Tessa Dunlop? It is on the rise, whoever's in power.
I mean, the timing's a disaster, isn't it? Keir Starmer, I thought, and I'm open about the fact I didn't vote for Keir Starmer in the last election, but I was moved by his beautiful, diverse, tolerant country. That landed for me. And then 2 days later, the most appalling attack on our Jewish community, I think, almost in British history. This is unprecedented.
Well, I think it was 50 years.
A murderous attack like this on a synagogue. So it is an unprecedented disaster. I think it's incumbent on us to make sure there isn't reprisals. I worry about it going both ways when we discover who the perpetrator is. And just remembering, what was that demonstration tonight? I come out of the tube in Westminster and I asked the policeman, I said, what are they campaigning about tonight? And he said, Palestine. Really?
Yeah.
Really?
You would have thought out of respect they would just cancel it.
I'm a bleeding hearts liberal. I'm desperately concerned about what's going on in Gaza, but not tonight.
It just seems wrong, but there we are.
It should be a morning. It is.
It's difficult for the police too, but why on earth the carry on?
Then And is that me conflating the two? It's very difficult to know. It's very difficult.
OK, Tessa Dunlop and Ellie Wheatley, thank you both for joining us again in the studio. Still to come.
Thanks to the immediate bravery of security staff and the worshippers inside, as well as the fast response of the police, the attacker was prevented from gaining access.
The police have been lauded for their swift response to the attack, stopping the perpetrator just 7 minutes after they were first alerted, probably preventing many more deaths.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Now, police have deployed additional officers around synagogues and Jewish communities in London after 2 people were attacked and 2 people were killed in a terror attack in Manchester. Since that attack this morning, police have been widely praised for their swift response. Officers arrived within minutes of the first emergency call and shot the attacker dead just 7 minutes later. This is the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police speaking earlier today.
But thanks to the immediate bravery of security staff and the worshippers inside, as well as the fast response of the police, the attacker was prevented from gaining access. All those inside were safely contained until police were able to confirm that it was safe to leave the premises.
I'm joined now by the former police officer and security expert, Kevin Jewell. Kevin, thank you for joining us tonight on State of the Nation. It was extraordinary, I think, to ordinary folk like me to think that from the first 999 call, they can be there and then 7 minutes later, the attacker is dead.
Yeah, good evening, and thank you for having me. Indeed, it was a quick response. Saying to one of your colleagues earlier, I'd be very surprised if there wasn't at least additional armed response vehicles, ARVs, on patrol around the country today, and particularly paying attention to synagogues because of the day that's being celebrated today by the Jewish community.
And were you surprised to see the SAS being deployed? I just looked back on previous deployments. They did land, or a helicopter which may have contained SAS forces landed on London Bridge back in June 2017. Other examples too. It seems that the SAS, they're triggered to attend these incidents when they occur, and that's a rare thing, thank goodness.
Indeed, it's a rare event, but without going into too much detail, with regards to counter-terrorism and Op Plato is being talked about a lot today. Op Plato automatically triggers the consideration of military being utilised. I won't go into detail about that mechanism that takes place, but certainly not surprised to see them there. It's all part of the Op Plato. And again, having worked at the Home Office and run the National Counter-Terrorism Exercise Team, these things are rehearsed as to what needs to be done, how it's all coordinated together, culminating in a cobra, as we saw earlier.
For what you've seen, I mean, without going into we're sort of discussing what happened. The police, as far as you know, took the right action here, shooting the attacker dead. We didn't know if what was around him was actually a bomb or wasn't a bomb. So one can feel for the police in this situation.
No, again, I mean, we've all seen the footage as we do these days when things like this sadly happen. I mean, the police officers now will, I've no doubt at all, still be sat at a police station or a location. They will go through a rigorous process to say what they did and to justify their actions as to what they saw, what they heard, because ultimately, they made the split-second decision to shoot the suspect dead. But they are highly trained. Again, as I said on an earlier programme, it's worth bearing in mind that they wouldn't just turn up and fire needlessly. There'll be an assessment made, and it has to come down to the fact that they clearly, truly believe that there was a risk to themselves or the wider public. And we've seen this before with devices that are attached. We've seen it at Borough Market, and we've seen it at London Bridge as well.
Yes, of course. And of course, tonight there are demonstrations taking place by Palestinian supporters, both near here in Westminster and in Greater Manchester. We know about those two at least. Was it wrong for these to go ahead?
Yeah, I'd rather not get into kind of the overall political comment, and your viewers will make up their own.
But no, I'm asking for a view politically. Yeah. Just operationally, would the police have been able to stop those, given what happened today?
They probably could have stopped them, depending on how planned they were, if permission's been given. And again, although how wrong it may seem, or the level of decency, bearing in mind what's happened, protests, as we know, are allowed to take place. We'll all have our views as to whether it should have taken place, but ultimately, if there was a threat, the police could curtail it. But if they've got permission to do the demonstration, then despite what you or others may think is in bad taste, then it will go ahead. Yeah. It did go ahead.
Often they are between a rock and a hard place trying to police behaviour, and it's not easy for them. Listen, Kevin Jewell, thank you for joining us tonight on State of the Nation. Thank you for joining us tonight. Let's get back to our panel in the studio here. Ellie Wheatley from the Guido Fawkes political website and Tessa Dunlop. To you, Tessa, where are we? We've got 5 minutes left of the show. It's a deeply depressing day. A shocking attack on a synagogue. 2 Jewish people are dead, more are in hospital. How are we going to deal with this? It seems we have to have conversations within our families, a wider community friendship group to tackle it. The government can't do everything.
Yeah, no, they really can't, actually. I was listening to Hadley Freeman, who's a sublimely good Jewish writer for The Times, and she was talking today in Yom Kippur. She was at synagogue with her children, obviously no screens there, was only aware something was going down when there was this excessive security presence suddenly outside her synagogue, including police vans. And the way in which she spoke with such luminosity. And I think the truth is, well, just that, I don't want to misquote her. I just remember being affected by the measured way in which she wasn't really quick to trigger a response to sort of, but at the same time, are we attributing and placing too much emphasis and pressure on a very small Jewish community in this country because of what is happening at the moment in the Middle East, 2,500 miles away.
Yeah, I mean, so there are 300,000 Jews in the UK, 0.5% of our population. Ellie Wheatley, the PM says that this individual attacked Jews because they are Jews.
And absolutely, he's right. And that's just horrific.
Absolutely appalling.
It's awful. And by the way, British Jews have nothing to do with what's going on over in Israel. No. And they should absolutely be made to feel safe here in the UK. And they are not. And that is an awful fact.
And so how do we dial that down? How do you divorce the two conversations?
Education, enforcement, holding institutions to account, and we're talking universities, we're talking police, indeed the way that our politicians speak as well, to really bring this out. I mean, I feel like this statement from Starmer just came too late. You know, it had to take this horrific attack for him to come out and say we've got to do something about this. When actually
he can't be blind to it. His wife's Jewish. He observes the Jewish faith on a Friday.
He's not totally blind to it. But by the way, groups like Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, etc., they have all been saying something awful is going to happen if you guys are not, if you don't listen to us. Is
That was the ghastly nature, I think, of what unfolded today. First of all, I remember listening to what was going on with the Metropolitan Police this morning, and I was shocked but not surprised. And then you hear this attack, and because we've been told
that's about the police station, Charing Cross.
Yeah, that's right, and I wasn't surprised. And then we've been constantly told for the last 2 years, there is a threat to our Jewish community, not only, also to our Muslim community, but particularly, I think, it's been ratcheted up for the Jewish community. And lo and behold, people have now died. And I think that it's incumbent on us, and I go back to the political dialogue. I mean, I noticed one of the headlines in the paper is Benjamin Netanyahu now placing this on Starmer's doorstep because of his recognition of the Palestine state. And you think, gosh, where does this stop when it's actually entered into the highest level of international geopolitics?
So it goes back to the point of identity, doesn't it? How people feel about themselves. And they we have people who are Palestinian here talking about the Gaza situation and put themselves in that situation, and then Jewish and linking across to Israel. That's the problem, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is in one sense. I don't think that people should be fighting proxy wars in the UK when something awful is happening outside of the UK. Again, you say it's about rhetoric as well from our politicians and other people, and I think the whole thing is absolutely devastating. Awful.
Yes. It is, and you asked me about Hadley. I remember her saying this week seemed to start in a positive way. This potential peace plan, talk, Tony Blair in with Donald Trump. My goodness, could something actually shift? And then look how once again I seem to be relating one situation with another one that's happened to a community in Manchester minding their own business on the most holy day in the Jewish calendar.
And they are British Jews.
Yeah, I know.
They're British.
It's devastating. This is absolutely devastating, actually. And we all need to. I think it's just, but it's important. Like the Bishop of Manchester, we need to reach out. That's what they did in the wake of the 2017 attack.
Well, yes,
actually, to reach out and try and find unity.
Yeah, make them feel.
Surely we're all in this.
Okay, listen, Ellie Wheatley from Guido Fawkes. Thank you for joining us. Difficult day for everybody, and our hearts go out to everyone in Manchester. And Tessa Dunlop, of course, historian and a friend of the show. Thank you for joining us. OK, that's all from us here. Jeg is back on Monday. Up now is my mate, Patrick Christys. Patrick, what's in your show?
Well, thank you very much, Christopher. I'm just going to say, I think we've had enough of thoughts and prayers. I think we've had enough of don't look back in anger. We've got the pro-Palestine brigade back out on the streets, including in Manchester. Have these people got no shame? What little patience I had with that lot has now completely and utterly gone. Terrorism has come to the streets of Britain again. It's come to my city again. And I, for one, am absolutely sick of it. The Jews are the canary in the coal mine. They're trying to tell us something bigger about Britain, and it's time to stand up.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Evening, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Pretty wet and windy tonight across the northwest, and tomorrow night could be a notch higher thanks to Storm Amy. That storm is brewing out in the Atlantic, still a way away, but intensifying as we go through the night. Ahead of it, tonight. This low is already causing some problems in Western Scotland, Northern Ireland, some heavy rain here. This band of rain will then swing its way across to England and Wales. So pretty much all of us will see some rain through the night, may get woken up by that, and the gusty winds moving in with it as well. With the wet and windy weather, it will be a warmer night compared to recent nights across the south. And then a bit of a respite into tomorrow, but Storm Amy isn't too far away, already starting to push in across Northern Ireland for tomorrow morning. The things, though, will, at least for a time, be a little calmer across Scotland after some wet and windy weather tonight. Still clearing from the Northern Isles in the morning, but here comes Storm Amy, spreading rain. At this stage, fairly light rain across Northern Ireland, extending into parts of Western Scotland during the morning. Still some of the overnight rain across the southeast, so it could be a wet start, especially in Kent, but that should be clearing away. And then we'll have a lull, a brief period where things are a bit drier before the next zone of rain comes in. Getting heavier through the morning across Northern Ireland. Rain warnings are in place for the northwest for Friday afternoon and into the evening. That rain spreading across most areas by the end of Friday afternoon. Temperatures in the teens, but feeling cooler than that with the wet and windy weather. Let's deal with the winds then, because they're really going to pick up as we go through Friday evening. You can see the swirl there. That's the storm system. Amber warning in place from 5 o'clock on Friday across the northwest of Scotland, where gusts of wind may exceed 90 miles an hour. A yellow warning covering much of northern Britain for gusts of wind through Friday night and into Saturday of 60 to maybe 70 miles an hour. Some disruption is likely from this storm system. All the weather warnings are on the Met Office website.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benimar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.